Yes, welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy Wednesday, March 8th. Deep Dive Part 2. Conference Tourney Betting Strategy. Big game breakdown. Iowa State, Oklahoma State Thursday morning. ACC gets fun today. Duke and Clemson. Plus the Patriot League. Auto bid on the line. Good game. Lehigh and Bucknell. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. A bad beat. Horizon League title game. Wisconsin-Milwaukee plus 5.5. They lose by 6. Free throws late.
Yeah, and look, if Milwaukee would have won, they would have set the record for the most losses by a team entering the big dance ever. They'd have had 23, but they didn't win. And they didn't cover either, even though the game was played at their pace. It was snail's pace throughout. 2 Cole Murray free throws with 3 seconds left, followed by a missed heave at the buzzer. That's a 6-point Norse win. As you mentioned, line bounced between -5 and -5.5 all day.
I was rooting hard against them. I had nothing in the pocket. This is bad for the sport. They would have been 11. They were 11-23 going into the game. I don't want that kind of garbage in the tournament. The small conferences have to do something about this, whether it's exclusively on the one seed's home floor. It's a disgrace that these teams are in this position, and this team was maybe 5 good minutes away from going to the tournament. I don't want to see that type of garbage.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because there's been 3 previous 20-loss teams in NCAA tournament history. You had Coppin State in 2008, you had Liberty in 2013, you had Cal Poly in 2014. So every once in a while, it does happen. And, at least Wisconsin-Milwaukee's been a D1 program. Northern Kentucky, this is the first year that they're NCAA tournament eligible. Just their 5th season as a D1 program, and they get in? I mean, I understand your rant, but you can make an argument the other way, too.
No, you can't. They were 24-10. Northern Kentucky had a good season.
Yeah. Well, Wisconsin-Milwaukee almost had a great tournament run. Tough beat if you had the Panthers last night in that Horizon League final.
Bet for the books. Middle alert. Pitt bet from 1 up to 2.5. When New Georgia Tech stunk away from home, it falls 2. There was a lot of shenanigans late with that one. Missed free throws, laying it in twice. Or at least 2 times, a guy from each team tried to miss a free throw on purpose, and he made it.
Yeah, that's brutal. And this was a really bad result for the house. Everybody that wanted either side basically was able to get the number they were looking for and cash a winning bet. If you're a good line shopper, doesn't matter who you had, you cashed Pitt, Georgia Tech. And as you mentioned, Pitt 1 or 2 at the free throw line each of the last 3 possessions that allowed Georgia Tech to rally from 7 down in the last 38 seconds. The most important miss, of course, came up 1 with just 1.4 seconds left on the clock. That allowed Georgia Tech to sneak under that closing number and ended up being a bad result with that middle.
Bad bet, Laker money. I don't understand it. On the road against Dallas, they were down 29 going into the 4th quarter. The Lakers are fade material. They are tanking. They're making it look good. They don't play any defense, but they didn't try. They didn't try till the 4th quarter to make it look respectable. My God, that almost was a moose. That thing got interesting late.
Well, it kind of did. I mean, LA might have played the single worst game any team has played all season. They lost 122-73 on their last visit to Dallas in late January. So I guess the money on LA was thinking they were going to play with pride in the revenge matchup. But, it's a tanking team right now, Pauly. You said it. You talked about it at the end of the Pelicans game where they weren't doing the right things at the end of close games. When you say fade LA in every game until proven otherwise, and don't be fooled by that final score. As you mentioned, a 12-2 run with a dunk just before the buzzer in the final 2 minutes. The Mavs killed LA last night. Bad bet for those who had the Lakers.
Another one, didn't understand this. Blazers Thunder under 223.5 down to 221.5. Never had a prayer.
No, but we got to talk about Dirk for a second. I forgot to talk about Dirk. Dirk becomes the 6th player to reach 30,000 points. And of course, the big thing was that he had to score 20. He had 18 in the first quarter against that defense that didn't care. Let's get Dirk up there. Yeah, he's an NBA hero. Now, when it comes to bad bet, I don't understand any under money when it comes to Blazer games, to be perfectly honest. And the Thunder have been flying under, too. They're 8-2 to the over the last, or over, I should say. The Thunder 8-2 to the over the last 10. The Blazers have played 4 straight over since the 1 under immediately after the All-Star break. You talk about Westbrook and Lillard. They're 2 of the more unstoppable players in the NBA during crunch time. The under never had a chance. It was 69 after 1. It was 191 after 3. And there wasn't going to be a 30-point 4th quarter, no matter how much under bettors might have wished for one. Bad bet. Blazers, Thunder, under.
I didn't understand the St. Mary's money. Gonzaga roughed them up the first 2 times, and the first half was complete domination. They fell asleep for the first 10 minutes of the second half and then pulled away to get the money.
No, and I mean, the old adage, oh, it's tough to beat a team 3 times. The math actually shows it's not that tough to beat a team 3 times. If you dominated the first meeting and you dominated the second meeting, you're more than capable of dominating the third meeting. Ton of St. Mary's money, plus 6.5, all the way down to 4.5 for a big national TV game. And all that money stays in the pockets of the books, not the bettors. Bad bet, St. Mary's.
All right, who's ready for the Las Vegas Raiders? I'll pat myself on the back. Andrew Brandt with a tweet, basically what I've been saying the whole year. Reports of the Raiders now having the votes to move to Vegas. That's the votes for the owners. They need 24 at the end of March when they vote to move to Vegas. I have said all along, owners will not let $750 million in public money die on the vine. Also, Ray Ratto, CSN Bay Area. Raiders' future in Oakland now downgraded a long shot. Give or take something really insane. Good line from my friend JT the Brick. Mark Davis only needs 1 vote. That's the vote of Jerry Jones. He runs the entire room.
And there's something to be said for that. And Jerry Jones has obviously been pro Las Vegas. And this is something we should take a little bit of credit for this, Pauly, because SportsBIT was on it. When the financing fell apart and the mainstream media, oh, the deal's a nightmare, it's done, it's dead. What were we saying? Not so fast, my friends. That's what Mark Davis was saying. That's what the Raiders organization was saying. And it looks like we will have the Las Vegas Raiders, Pauly, which is something I never thought I'd be able to say. Even when we were calling it even money, right now, it's chalk.
No doubt, heavy chalk. Just see the vote coming up at the end of the month to make it official. Up next, big game breakdown. We'll start in the ACC with Duke and Clemson on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT, Pauly and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. Time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds. SportsBookReview.com. ACC, 11 a.m. Pacific today. Duke and Clemson. Projected line, we taped this real early. Duke 6.5, 147.5 the total. First meeting, Duke was laying 11. Lucky to win at home, 64-62. Clemson won the battle of the boards, 4 fewer turnovers. The Dukies 11 of 26 from 3, though, Teddy. That was the difference.
Yeah, and just a minor correction there. This game is actually scheduled for an 11:30 a.m. tip-off on the Pacific Coast. Obviously, if you're relying on us for what time the game starts, we'll give better information than that. But the bottom line with this contest, of course, when we look at that first meeting, Clemson was probably the better team in that game. Duke was hitting 3-pointers. And now we have the rematch. And we have to ask, this is something we talked about all week. How much motivation does Coach K have to go hard? This is a Duke rotation that's now down to 7 players. Harry Giles only going to be a part-timer for that team. Now, they're depth shy. They're already struggling. 2-3 straight up. 0-5 against the spread down the stretch of the ACC campaign. So, Duke wins here. What's the reward? Well, you get to play Louisville. And then you win that, you get to play North Carolina. And then only then, if they survive, they get to the championship game. If Duke loses, the team gets to go home. They get to have a practice weekend, prep up for next week, and they can try to get Grayson Allen back near 100% because Allen's been really a non-factor. The last 3 games, only 39 minutes off the bench. Luke Kennard made it very clear about Duke's depth problems. Quote, no matter who we play, we can't take any plays off. That's what we worry about at the start of some of these tournaments with the highest seeded teams having depth issue, Pauly. How much does Coach K want it?
I think he wants it. I think he wants to make a run here because they haven't been playing well the last few weeks of the season. Now, as far as Clemson, they need it in the worst way. They collect the jerseys if they lose. Do they bottom out in the 109-61 disaster at Florida State? I think so. That was February 5th. 4 and 5 since then, but the losses were by 1, 2, 6, 1, and 2 points. Now 3 straight wins to build some confidence in the perfect game against NC State, where NC State never made a run, and they had 8 players with at least 16 minutes, and nobody went more than 32.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, when you get a chance to get acclimated to an unfamiliar arena, like Barclays Center for Clemson, and you don't stretch any of your players out, nobody going more than 32 minutes, everybody getting into the flow, and you have a guy who legitimately creates some matchup problems for the Duke forwards, in Jason Blossengame. 22 points in 32 minutes yesterday, and a 6'7" guy who can handle the basketball. All of those factors tell me, or make me think at least, Duke's run in this tournament might be kind of short. We'll talk about this game when it comes to play of the day time.
Up next, Patriot League now. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Games at 4:30 Pacific on CBS Sports Network. Bucknell against Lehigh. Games on Bucknell's home floor. They are 5-147. They've won the Patriot League regular season 3 straight years and 6 of the last 7. But they haven't won the tourney since 2013. The first 2 meetings, Lehigh got them both. One by 11 at Bucknell and one by 8 at home. They won the board 73-58 across the 2 games. Shot 47%. Tim Kempton, the big guy down low, is awesome. This guy can play 44-19 in the 2 wins.
Yeah, no question. That's been obviously the problem for Bucknell in the first 2 meetings. But we talk about Bucknell. I mean, this is a one-trick pony. What do? They play defense. Look at the graphic. In the Patriot League, in every category, defense efficiency, effective field goal percentage, 3-point shooting, 2-point shooting. The one thing they've struggled with is that size that Kempton brings to the table. Now, they do have a 6'9", 230 guy in Nana Fuland. He put up big numbers against Kempton as well, 36 points and 20 boards in those 2 games. But the Bison interior defense around Fuland really didn't get the job done in those 2 regular season losses.
Watch out for the winner. They could be dangerous in the tournament, whoever wins this game. Bucknell 25-8 on the season. Next up, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. This is Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific. The estimated line, Pick'em 162. Iowa State against Oklahoma State. One of the first tip-offs of the day. Might be as good of the game as they're going to see all day. First 2 meetings, Iowa State plus 3.5, 96-86 on the road. Then Lane 3.5, 86-83 at home. The second meeting was a POD over, and that was a shootout. There's some terrific players in this game, and it's going to be a track meet as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. How many times in NCAA history has a team from a major conference scored 169 points in a season series and get swept in those 2 games? 86 in the first meeting, 83 in the second meeting, and they didn't win either time. Now, you know, the good for Oklahoma State, this offense finished the season number 1 in the nation in offensive efficiency. The second best offense of the past 10 years. They finished better than UCLA, an offense we were touting as being historic just a few weeks ago. Oklahoma State finished higher in offensive efficiency than UCLA. But defensively, obviously, when you're scoring $169 in the 2 games and you're not winning either one of them, it's saying there are some defensive issues. The defense finished number 123. But yeah, you talk about a great matchup and an early tip-off that's worth talking about and worth watching. I don't know how much better it gets than Juwan Evans and Monte Morris getting after each other. This one, like the first 2 meetings, Pauly, should be a whole lot of fun.
Yep, Morris, Long, and Thomas already have Big 12 titles in 2014 and 15. Lost a good game versus Oklahoma, 79-76, plus 4.5 in the first round last year. Cyclone seniors, 6-1 straight up and 6-0-1. Great info there. ATS in this tourney. What do you think? If they win this game, they likely get Kansas.
Yeah, and that's at least a modest concern here for the Iowa State side, because the Cyclones could get caught looking ahead against a team that they've already beaten twice. But the fact that both meetings were competitive, the fact that one of them came, less than 2 weeks ago, makes me think that Steve Prohm will be able to get his team to bring the proper focus here. And when you're talking about those Cyclone seniors, the 3 of them, who are monsters in this tournament, they have yet to lose a game against the spread in the Big 12 tourney in their career. I like this Oklahoma State team, but I'm not convinced that, just like with Gonzaga and St. Mary's we talked about earlier, I'm not convinced the third meeting is going to be the charm.
That'll be a great game. All right, American Athletic Conference Tournament, March 9th through the 12th at Hartford. SMU a big favorite there. Where's the money coming in on this one?
Well, I mean, SMU is a team that only has 6 players in their rotation. So I really wonder if Tim Jankovich wants to win this tournament. We talked about Duke and their issues. And as we've run through so many of these conference tournaments, when we look at the chalk, and the chalk has depth concerns, the concept of winning 3 games in 3, 4 games in 4, some of these times even 5 games in 5, gets to be a little bit much. Cincinnati is the team that's attracted the early money, and no surprise, the Bearcats bring depth. They got the break of playing in Hartford already on Sunday in a different arena, but they're comfortable in their practice venues in a way that other teams aren't. They've been in Hartford all week, maybe a little more settled in. The Bearcats, in my mind, the team to beat, and certainly the early money has agreed with me.
This is a bad league. Big West tournament, March 9th through the 11th in Anaheim. If anyone other than Irvine wins it, they're looking at a 16 seed. What do you think of this one? Cal Davis almost did it a couple of years ago. They're the second choice at 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, you always worry about Long Beach State in these type of tournaments, but it's not a league that I followed like a hawk all year. Not a league I plan on wagering on. Same thing with the WAC. The WAC tournament here in Las Vegas with New Mexico State and Cal State Bakersfield as the two, almost co-chalks in this league. And a pair of 20-win teams on the campaign. But Grand Canyon's a 20-win team. You know what I'm saying? The WAC is a bottom feeder league. And kudos if you've been following them, if you got some scoop info, but they're not leagues that I personally do a lot of wagering on. And I'm not going to start to try to bet on a league in the middle of March that I haven't looked at all year.
They've been feisty in the tournament. They haven't won games, but New Mexico State went to overtime and had played some close games, and Bakersfield gave Oklahoma all they could handle. Remember, that was essentially a home game for Oklahoma, and that thing was tight with 6 minutes left last year. So something that, not the best league, but teams that have done well in the tournament from a point spread perspective. Up next, the Deep Dive, Part 2, Conference Tourney Betting Strategies coming up in the Play of the Day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today, Deep Dive time, Part 2. If you missed Part 1, check it out on yesterday's show. Everything's up there on YouTube. And fun show yesterday. Now, Part 2, Conference Tourney Betting Strategies. Momentum is real. Play the teams that are hot, Teddy, and got a streak going.
Yeah, look, when we talk about this particular deep dive, we're trying to give conceptual ideas for things that you can look at over the course of the next 4 days to make money with. And the simplest concept we can come up with, momentum is very real. What did we talk about earlier in the show? Wisconsin-Milwaukee, a team with 23 losses, a team that came into the postseason ice cold. They win a game, all of a sudden they win another game and another game. And maybe they didn't cover the final, but you can't tell me that there wasn't something gained from that squad in terms of momentum and confidence with getting a victory. Look, in the big dance, most Cinderella squads are going to get bounced after a single upset win. Every once in a while, you're going to see somebody make the Sweet 16, but the biggest upsets are usually one and done. That's not always the case in the conference tournaments. And you can make a lot of money riding a squad, a talented squad that has suddenly found their mojo over a 3 or 4 game span, especially if you're making money line bets, as well as your standard point spread wager. Some of these dogs are going to cash on the money line 1 day, 2 day, 3 days in a row.
Yeah, this one very important but true. Fatigue and depth issues.
Well, yeah, and this is, again, something that we've been pounding this theme all week. But think about it. In the big dance, teams play 2 games at most over the span of a week. In the little dances, teams can play as many as 5 games in 5 days. And obviously it's going to help bettors who put the work in, because a 9-man rotation trumps a 7-man rotation on the third night of back-to-back-to-backs. But there's so many bettors out there that don't seem to have a real idea about depth concerns. And the markets are always going to be caught in a situation where they have to put point spreads up that reflect season-long power rating numbers, overall power rating numbers. So the individual matchups with teams with depth versus those without can really work in bettors' favors when they pay attention and when they know these teams. And of course, it's not just overall depth. Teams that rely on 1 or 2 stars can go a long way in the big dance. They really can, and it's superstars that often is what it takes to win the Final Four and win the championship. But in the conference tournaments, the teams with the balanced attacks seem to be able to handle the major minutes better, and they can withstand an off-shooting night, a bad game from any one of their key players. That doesn't necessarily work so well for teams with the superstars. And of course, one thing you always have to remember with totals, people say, oh, tired legs, the jumpers fall short. Yes, third game in 3 days, fourth game in 4 days, jumpers do fall short. But you know what else falls short? Guys with their defensive rotations are falling short when they're tired as well. Tired teams do not necessarily specifically equate with unders on an everyday basis or every game basis.
Well, so now a lot of times these teams are playing for the third time. How about they're familiar with each other?
Well, yeah, and this is definitely an edge for game watchers. You know, when a team from the ACC matches up against a team from the Big 12 or the Mountain West or any other conference, we can guesstimate which conferences are going to be bet on or bet against, but that's all it is. It's an educated guess. In conference tournaments, we know how these teams match up against one another because they've done it before, often twice. And if you're watching games, you've seen them play. Even if you haven't seen them, you've got box scores and play-by-play data to help you understand what happened in the previous meeting. There's no guessing game in regards to relative conference strength. So you're taking out all of these X factors. That's a benefit for bettors. The more we actually know about the matchups, the more likely we'll be able to predict winners and, of course, the all-important margins of victory.
All right, money time, play of the day. Back to the ACC. Betting number 525, Clemson. Projected line 6.5. Let's grab the points in this one. Clemson wins this game. They're back on the bubble. It gets really interesting if they can knock off the Dukies. We don't have to win. We can just keep it close and turn a disappointing season into a positive one with a win today. And as we talked about, everything went their way yesterday. Easy win. Didn't have to play big minutes. And who knows where Coach K's head's at for this one coming up in the Dukies. That's today's play of the day, money time. Yep.
No, I was just going to say, Clemson, we're guesstimating this line is going to come 6.5. I'm willing to recommend Clemson as low as +5. So anywhere down to +5, Tigers are worthy of a wager.
All right, now it gets crazy. Thursday and Friday, we finish out the week in the Google Hangout. Thursday, are you ready for the Hangout at 8 o'clock Pacific while all these games are going on?
That's going to be insane. And the whole thing is I always turn the TVs off, Paulie. I never have the TVs on in my office when we're doing the show. On Thursday, we're doing the Hangout. We got to have TVs on. There's just too much action. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, wall-to-wall insanity. 3 of my favorite betting days of the year. Enjoy it. The first one starts today. It's going on right now while you're watching this. Turn us off. Go watch some games. We'll see you guys tomorrow right here on SportsBIT.